What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JBsports back again with another one. We're 2 days out before a much anticipated heavyweight matchup, a trilogy. We don't get that many trilogies in the sport of boxing, especially in the heavyweight division. But we got a trilogy, man, that's going down Saturday night, T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada, aka Sin City. When you talk about great heavyweight trilogies, you're going to talk about, well, you're going to put this at the head of the list here. You're talking about Ali Frazier. That is the greatest trilogy in the history of boxing, in my opinion. And definitely the greatest trilogy in the heavyweight division. I believe it's in all divisions, that's the greatest trilogy, Ali Frazier. What that fight meant, the backstory of those three epic fights, I believe that is the best trilogy in the sport of boxing. But we just talking about the heavyweight division. Obviously, Ali Frazier is number one. Number two on the list, in my opinion, is Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield. Those trilogies, great fights, great, especially the first fight. The second fight was solid. That trilogy kind of went like the Ali Frazier trilogy. When you look at Ali Frazier, the first fight was epic. The second fight was alright. Ali did what he had to do, to keep Frazier at bay, and win that fight. The third fight was epic. Both fighters damn near killed each other in that fight, that Thriller in Manila. And I think Riddick Bowe and Holyfield went down the same path. That first fight was epic, probably the best of the three fights. Kind of like Ali Frazier, as far as just both guys at the prime of their ability, at the apex of their career. Even though Ali had came off of, a 3.5 year layoff, he was still, in my opinion, at his peak condition. As he was pretty much a guy that was going to stand in front of you and sit down his shots more. A lot of people say that he did that because he didn't have the legs to, do the Ali shuffle and dance around the ring and use the jab like he could before he was put on a 3.5 year hiatus by the U.S. government. But I think it had more to do with it. He was, he started developing more power, man. His power shots were much better, and he started to sit down more on his shots. Why go 15 rounds? I don't have to. If I can get you out of there before 15 rounds, I don't get paid for overtime. I think that was more had to do with what Ali was doing after the 3.5 year hiatus, and he didn't have the legs no more. That's just my opinion. But with that being said, you look at the second fight between Ali and Frazier. It's just like the Riddick Bowe Holyfield fight. The second fight was Holyfield did what he had to do to get a close fight, and I'm not sure he actually won that second fight, to be honest. But he did better than in the first fight. A lot of people thought he was going to get smashed in the second fight. So I think that has a lot to do with these fights, man. When you got a guy that's coming into a fight as a pretty much significant underdog and he does better than expected, he kind of gets the favoritism in a close fight. That happened in the Holyfield Riddick Bowe second fight, and that happened in the, I'm going to bring it back to these times, guys that's followed boxing here recently. They ain't followed boxing back in the day or don't know about the history or the backstory of Ali Frazier. Let's take it to a recent fight. You look at Shawn Porter and Kell Brook. Kell Brook was expected to get steamrolled by Shawn Porter because he hadn't fought nobody on the level of Shawn Porter. First of all, he's come over there from the UK. UK had that stigma of guys coming over here falling short. So a lot of people thought he was going to come over here and get smashed. And he did better than expected, and he ended up winning a unanimous decision, I think, over Shawn Porter. And I felt that it was a very close, very competitive fight, but I thought Shawn Porter edged the fight out. I thought Kell Brook did way too much holding. He should have got penalized for that. And I think if that fight, it's like that, if that fight was fought and over there in the UK in the same fashion, I would have no problem with Kell Brook winning the fight. But for him to get a decision and take the title from a champion on the performance that he did against Shawn Porter, I don't think he did enough to take Shawn Porter title. That's basically what I'm saying. And I actually had Shawn Porter winning that fight 7 rounds to 5. With that being said, I think people perception going into the fight sometimes plays a part on the outcome of a fight. That's neither here nor there. We're gonna break down this fight, and I think the main weapon for both fighters is a 3-letter word: jab. What fighter can establish his jab at a more effective connect percentage and a more effective as far as keeping the opponent at bay, making the opponent reset? Whoever fighter is able to win that jab battle is going to have a leg up on winning this fight. With Deontay Wilder's power, he can get out jab and still win a fight, so he's got more margin for error than Tyson Fury, but Tyson Fury definitely got to establish his jab. Tyson Fury has got a very underrated jab. You know, when they talk about Tyson Fury, they don't give him enough credit for having a great jab. I think he has the best jab in boxing. I can give him #1 as far as having the best jab in boxing. I'll probably put Luis King Kong Ortiz as having the second best jab in the heavyweight division. But Tyson Fury has a beautiful jab. And he did a good job of establishing that jab in the first fight in particular. I think he's going to have to do that again. You know, Deontay Wilder, when he chooses to use his jab, I think he has the third best jab in boxing behind Tyson Fury and Luis Ortiz. He's going to establish that jab to disguise the right hand. You know, hit him with that jab, mesmerize him, get him focused on that jab, and then come over the top with the right hand. That's how he knocked out Dominic Breazeale in a highlight reel knockout. I think he's going to have to do some of the same things. Now, I think Deontay Wilder's going to have to control distance. He's going to have to control distance because he needs distance to get off his power shot. Tyson Fury knows that. That's why Tyson Fury is going to step to him. He's going to try to smother him. He's going to try to bully him up on the ropes, and he's going to be doing some dirty tactics. That's another thing that Tyson Fury do not get called out on. He is a dirty fighter. You know Bernard Hopkins, a.k.a. the Executioner? Everybody will always talk about how dirty he was. He's a dirty fighter. He's very crafty, but he's a dirty fighter. But they don't seem to say that about Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is a dirty fighter too. It's kind of funny how the black fighter, he gets that stigma either. He does some things in the ring and he quickly gets labeled as a dirty fighter. The Great White Hope, you know, they don't say nothing about him being a dirty fighter. He was real dirty in that second fight. And that referee did not warn him, did not deduct no point. That referee acted like he was in Tyson Fury's pocket, the way he handled that second fight. That was absolutely ridiculous, absolutely disgraceful. But nobody wanted to say anything about it. They tried to sweep it under the rug, but I'm going to bring it out here today on this video. So hopefully the referee that's refereeing this fight Saturday night will warn people when they throwing elbows and putting people in the headlocks and hitting people behind the head. They'll warn them if they continue to do it, start deducting points, man. Hopefully that'll be the case. I know Wilder team has probably really been standing on that going into this fight, and hopefully the level field will be even. Not only in the ring, but outside the ring, as we all know about the manipulated gloves that I believe Tyson Fury did, not only in the first fight, but in the second fight. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires, but the jab will be the key for both fighters. I think Deontay Wilder, when Tyson Fury steps to him and try to bully him up on the ropes and put the pressure on him and basically try to dog him out on the ropes, I think before he gets to that point, Deontay Wilder must turn him. He must have hit him with the jab to kind of stifle his pressure. Jab to the body. That does a good job of stifling your opponent's pressure tactics. Jab to the body, and then when he tries to come forward, you turn him, and then you start trying to throw the right hand and the left hand. I think that's going to be the key for Deontay, the Bronx Bomber Wilder. Now, Fury is a very good boxer. Very good head movement, great feet. He's got good footwork. One of the best footworks in the heavyweight division. I probably put him right up there with Luis Ortiz as far as very fundamentally sound with the footwork. He's a guy that's going to look to establish the jab and then come over the top with the right hand. Now, we all talk about Wilder's right hand, but Fury's got a good right hand too. It's not as powerful as Wilder's right hand. Wilder has what I call a one-hit a quarter right hand. When he touches you with that right hand, he can sleep you. He can sleep you with that right hand once he touches you with that right hand. And touches is the operative word for Deontay Wilder. I don't think Deontay Wilder needs to really put all his power behind every punch. I think he just needs to touch Fury early on, systematically break down Tyson Fury. And then later on, I think the stoppage will come. Many people ain't talking about this, but Fury is a guy that got cut real bad in the fight before the second fight with Deontay Wilder. In a fight that he probably should have lost. They probably should have stopped that fight, but we all know the reason why they didn't stop the fight, because they had big money on the horizon in a second fight with Deontay Wilder, so they let that fight continue, and Fury was able to get a well-deserved unanimous decision. If you ain't gonna stop it, he definitely won more rounds than following. But the question I ask is why the fight wasn't stopped before then? Because that cut in the other fight, that fight would have got stopped, and the person that did the damage and made the cut happen, if it wasn't a headbutt, would have got the victory in a fight like that. But that wasn't the case, and we're here today getting ready for a trilogy between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. But I think Deontay just needs to touch him, because I don't think Tyson Fury face is going to hold up. I think he still has deep scar tissue from the Otto Wallin fight. That's why I think Fury is going to actually be ultra aggressive like he was in the second fight. The earlier he can get that fight over with, the better it is for Tyson Fury. The longer this fight goes on, the probability of him getting cut up goes up and up as each round progresses. So the key for Deontay Wilder is to bust him up and cut him up, and eventually shut him up. Because once he get that victory, Tyson Fury ain't gonna have too much to say. He's gonna probably give Deontay Wilder the just due, but he's gonna probably say, well, I won the first 2 fights, let's do a 4th fight. I'm up 2-1. I give Wilder a chance to even it up. That's what he'll say. He'll spin it his way. But I think at the end of the day that Deontay Wilder has got the great game plan that's gonna come into effect Saturday night, implemented by Malik Scott. They're gonna systematically break down Tyson Fury, eventually cut Tyson Fury. The thing about being cut against Otto Wallin, you can probably bite down on your mouthpiece and continue to carry on against Otto Wallin, as he had no fear of Otto Wallin's power. But if he gets cut up against Deontay Wilder, it's a whole different ball game. I think he'll be looking to wave that white flag, because if he gets blood leaking into his eye and compromising his vision, I don't think he'll be willing to stand in there and get caught with a right hand that he possibly could not see due to the blood leaking in his eye. I think he will wave that fight off, wave that white flag, and basically said, hey, he cut me. I think he headbutted me. He'll make all kind of excuses. Basically say, well, he got me this time because I got cut. If it wasn't for the cut, I would have been able to continue on. I won a 4th fight. He's going to come up with all kind of excuses. I won the first 2 fights. I'm still up 2-1 over Deontay Wilder. Let's do it a 4th time. Knowing that both fighters went into the 3rd fight, knowing that this will be the last fight. This will close the chapter on the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder saga. So we will see what happens. We will see what transpires. But I like Wilder to systematically break down Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury's face will get busted up, will get cut up, and eventually he will get shut up, as Deontay Wilder will stop Tyson Fury in the 10th round TKO, as either Tyson Fury says no mas or someone in his corner says no mas. The white flag will be waved. Let me know your thoughts, who you like in this particular matchup. Deontay, the Bronze Bomber Wilder, or Tyson Fury. Pick a winner. If you think it's going to end in a knockout or a stoppage, predict a round. Let me know your thoughts about this epic matchup. I'm not taking nothing away from Tyson Fury. In my opinion, even if he loses this fight, I still would probably put him as the number 2 heavyweight in the heavyweight division. Alexander Usyk would have a strong case as the number 2 guy, but I would put Tyson Fury as the number 2 guy based on resume, getting there with the most dangerous puncher in the history of the sport. Deontay Wilder 3 times, not 1, not 2, but 3 times. You got to give him credit. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Tyson Fury, the key for him to win is the jab. He got the jab, and I think he's got to throw that right hand, throw the left hook, jab to the body, have great head movement, and basically be more active, be more accurate. That's what cost him in the first fight. He landed shots, but I don't think he was busy enough. He's got to be a little bit more busy in this 3rd fight. But to be more busy, you putting yourself in harm's way. You putting yourself in the lion's den. But he was able to do that in the 2nd fight when he stepped too wild. I think he's got to be a little bit more of a mixture from Tyson Fury's side, as far as fight a little bit on the outside and dance around like he did in the first fight, and then step to Wilder and be more aggressive in the 2nd fight. But I think Tyson Fury's got to stop this fight in the first half of the fight. The longer this fight goes, in my opinion, I don't think his face is going to hold up, because Wilder, under the tutelage and guidance of a Malik Scott, is not going to be just looking for the one-hitter quitter. I think he's going to touch Tyson Fury early and often, looking to break down Tyson Fury. And I think what will happen when we get toward the middle part of that fight and in the second half of that fight, I think you're going to see the wear and tear on Tyson Fury's face. And I think with that deep scar tissue that he suffered at the hands of Otto Wallin, I think that will come into play. As he touches over that eye, I can see another nasty cut developing over Tyson Fury's eye. And then, like I said, I think that's going to be the beginning of the end of Tyson the Gypsy King Fury. And I look for Deontay Wilder again to win 10th round stoppage. Let me know your thoughts. And subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. And I holla.